PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. I asked you, the viewers, if you'd played any games with the Kalashnikov Sicilian that you are proud of, and could you send them in to me? And I had an excellent response. Thank you very much indeed to those of you that sent them in. And I'd like to show you one of these games. So this was an online blitz game played by Frank Schröder from Germany. I've met Frank on a couple of occasions at the ACO tournaments in Crete and Kos, where he's an enthusiastic competitor and he's become quite an adept exponent of the Kalashnikov Sicilian. And this game illustrates how easy it is for white to fall into a strategically dubious position. So you can see Frank's online handle is Schachmanski, and this was played on Lichess in June. So here we go. E4, C5, knight F3, knight C6, D4, an exchange on D4, and E5. So that's our starting move, and this puts immediate pressure on white. So where should this knight go? Well, there are lots of moves here. But really only one of them challenges black, and that's knight b5. In this game, white played knight takes c6. And frankly, white's problem started right here. Strategically, I think this is a mistake. And not that, objectively white is worse in this position, but I think there is a tendency for things to go wrong for white because you see this pawn covers the crucial d5 square. Black now has more pawns in the center than white, and it could be that black will be able to dominate the center with pawns later on by forcing through d5. And you might recall a classic game that also started in this way, McDonnell-Labordone. Now, if you want a classic picture of how black's pawns can dominate the centre, then the end of that game, played in London in 1834, illustrate how it can be dangerous to give your opponent a majority of pawns in the centre. What a final position. I have looked at that game on the channel. I'll put the link somewhere so you can see that game if you haven't already. So just bear that in mind. Black has a majority of pawns in the centre, and this could be dangerous. Right, this game continued bishop d3, knight f6, castles, and now bishop e7. Okay, very, very modestly played. Yeah, I mean, one could play more actively with the bishop, but bishop e7 is fine. And castles kingside, so very good. Both sides have castled early. I approve of that, so that's good. But both sides have yet to complete their development. So here white plays a very simple move, knight c3. What would happen if white decided, okay, well, I want to do something maybe about controlling d5? Well, in fact, black can break with d5 anyway. This very common move in the Kalashnikov, I call this liberation station. And in this case, well, black is absolutely fine. I mean, that knight looks really powerful, and it's even threatening to take one of these lovely bishops. So what I'm saying is c4 certainly wouldn't solve white's problems. In any case, knight c3 played, and Frank accepted the invitation to build a lovely pawn center. Well, I asked the question, after 9 moves, who stands better? Well, I would say black stands better already. Because, yeah, greater number of pawns in the middle of the board. And you're even about to gain time because, of course, there's a threat of simply winning a piece with d4. So, white would like to make a developing move, maybe move the queen off the back rank, but no, you've got to deal with a tactical threat. So e takes d5. I mean, that's not strictly necessary, but, I mean, this looks fantastic for black now. And then bishop g5. Okay, so white is trying to put some pressure on the centre, and yes, there could be a sneaky trick to take here and take on d5 and watch out for that discovered attack. But of course, this is very simple to defend against, and bishop b7 is an entirely natural move, developing the bishop on the wonderful long diagonal and protecting that d pawn as well. So yeah, black maintains a strategic advantage. Rook e1, so there's a bit of pressure here. So how do we deal with this? Well, one could push either pawn. Frank went for d4, why not? Let's just push on. So the knight is attacked and it moved into the middle. Fine. Everything got exchanged. Right, what's changed? Well, no minor pieces on the board. So we've got a major piece position. This rook is on e4. Well, white would love to have a bit of time to play something like queen e2 and rook e1 to put some pressure on e5, but, well, it's black's turn. Well, is everybody set? The rooks are connected. The queen looks good here. All right, let's go for it. f5. Let's push those pawns. It's going to be McDonnell against Labodone, London 1834 again. They're like Space Invaders, just crawling down the board. And rook d8. Yeah, we want to push that pawn, so it's necessary to protect the d pawn first, and rook d8 looks very natural opposite the queen. Very nice. Queen e2, threatening the pawn here. Now, Frank plays very carefully. He puts his rook on e8, and this actually gives white a chance. I know this is a blitz game, so I'm reluctant to criticise at all. But actually, if black plays e4, then black is in complete control. I don't see that these pawns can be attacked successfully. For example, rook d1, and now queen c5. This steps out of any pins, stops a queen c4 check, and black dominates completely. And yes, it'll be possible at some point to launch an attack. Perhaps this one will come. Perhaps one of these can be pushed down. But the important thing is hold those pawns, and you don't allow white to break with either c3 or f3. Black has a dominating position there. But rook e8, that's a very careful move, but maybe a bit too careful. Because after rook d1, it's not so simple for black to push those pawns. We would like to play e4. But of course then there's a check on c4, and that d pawn can be taken. So that little moment of hesitation means that white has a chance. So Frank put the king in the corner. Very understandable. So he wants to avoid that check. And here I think if white plays c3, then white can equalise. So I think black has to take this really. And h6, well, I still prefer black. That's a very nice centre. But I think white should be fine here. With major pieces and no minor pieces on the board, it's hard to make anything of this position. But white also hesitated and played h3. Queen c5. In fact, the tactics work okay. With c3 in this position, white should play this. And after this, well, you can see this is threatened. And so white should be okay. But again, white hesitated. King f1. And then it's getting tricky again. Pressure on the c-file. Well, that's a typical theme in the Sicilian, of course. And black is now better. I mean, white still had a few chances in this endgame, but not after rook e2. I mean, white should exploit this pin again. This is the problem. And this one is still actually quite difficult to win because white has some pressure here. But rook e2 is a disaster. I think white underestimated that he still had some chances here. And now black is in control. And watch what happens. The king came into the middle. Well, this is all in vain. because when black dominates the center, then that decides the game. So e4, and watch those pawns crawling down the boards, those space invaders. This is wonderful for black here, and a fitting finale. Well, one of the pawns didn't make a touchdown, however, that is a fitting checkmate because black absolutely dominates the center. And dare I say it, it all started because white exchanged on c6. That is a mistake. If you're interested in checking out more info on the Kalashnikov, then do have a look at my book and also my chessable course. I'll put details in the video description and in the comments as well. But very well played to Frank Schroeder. And that is a very nice and very fitting final position.